Hello everyone and welcome to a game between TSL's Curious versus Huck here on Metalopolis. Curious spawning as the red Zerg at the 6 o'clock position, meanwhile Liquid Huck spawning as the blue Protoss at the 12 o'clock position. So this will be Zerg versus Protoss here on Metalopolis. Already we see Curious moving out with this Overlord, trying to scout out. We'll quickly find not much at all in this location. Meanwhile, I guess he's trying to read the name, and yeah, Korean is a phonetic. Korean is a phonetic language, so you can pronounce it. So I guess he does know that this is TSL Curious. And yeah, I'm trying not get distracted by the conversation. You can see now Huck moving around with this one probe, trying to make sure that there is no overlords in that location. As soon as he sees that there is no overlord there, he will be continuing to scout out with this probe and quickly find TSL Curious over here. What opening will Curious do? Curious opening off with an extractor first, and will be getting a spawning pool in just a moment, allowing him to get early metabolic boosted lings. 4 lings early in the game really help out Zerg, as Zerg wants to be able to expand out across the map as quickly as possible, and getting those early lings help you to gain decent map presence. You can see drones now quickly being transferred over into the one extractor that should have just about 100 gas the instant that the spawning pool is done, and now a drone giving chase to the probe. The probe can try to warp in a pylon here, but at this point it would just be a token maneuver, as the Zerglings will quickly come out as well and be able to destroy that pylon. And now the drone just trying to get some damage onto that probe. If you ever wonder why the probe doesn't try to fight against the drone, the natural regeneration on the drone actually lets the drone win the fight 99% of the time, unless it is beautifully microed, and it takes a lot of time and energy in order to micro it that effectively. The probe now trying to get some damage onto some units down over there, deciding not to, and now perhaps looking to see if a hatchery has been placed down. No hatchery just quite yet, as a drone finally making its way out in order to do some scouting. We can see a zealot currently being trained, and after that cybernetics cord is already down and now going into a second assimilator. So with this, Protoss players really like to use a lot of gas in their early builds, especially against Zerg, as early sentries are very, very effective, and they also, as I've said before, still allow you to do an early expansion. Zerglings now making their way across the map, 4 Zerglings to be exact, perhaps going to activate the Xel'Naga Watchtowers. Oh no, not activating the Xel'Naga Watchtowers, as an Overlord now finally flies off into position here to see if an early expansion has been set up. The probe will quickly be able to just simply pass through that one Zealot, make its way in, and begin to mine more minerals. Hatchery now being placed down by Curious at the 6 o'clock expansion, and drones will be transferred in as well. You can see that Curious is currently not mining any gas at all. He decided to pull off all of his drones in order to get a stronger economy. He needs to train up multiple queens, and that is the reason why he's currently not mining gas. Also, that early hatchery costs a decent amount of minerals. 1 drone plus 300 minerals as well. The Overlord just continuing to wander around now, and just perhaps going to hide itself off over here and perhaps fly into this location eventually, being able to see if an expansion is ever set up. 1 Zealot, 1 Sentry, plus a pylon on that low ground, making it difficult for Zerglings to try to run by, making this a much narrower choke point. I believe the probe will be setting up a nexus in just a moment. Just waiting for that 400 minerals. Down it goes. And now going to just continue to mine more minerals. Double gateways also coming in as well, so Huck should be upgrading these to warp gates in just a second, and as soon as he upgrades them to a warp gate, he should have enough gas to warp in 2 sentries, and then perhaps warp in a stalker eventually. So what are those units? They are going to be sentries, so we are at the sentry count of 4, and he may just continue to just try to get more and more sentries, as sentries are such a critical part of the Protoss army. Zealot and Sentry now trying to make their way out. The Sentries are going to be able to quickly deal more damage towards those Zerglings, and the map presence that Curious tried to establish throughout the game is slowly starting to deteriorate as those Zerglings are easily taken out. Huck now adding more sentries to his army. There is no units down over here, so the Zergling will be able to simply run by and get some damage onto that one probe. The Zealot now trying to come in, and now what's going to happen to that probe? Oh, the probe does get taken down by that Zergling, so a nice trade-off there, as a Sentry now being warped in. And now a Sentry Zealot army on the move. And will the Zerglings be able to get some damage onto those sentries? It looks like it will be able to, trying to get some damage, and now deciding to back off. We do have double hallucinated phoenixes in order to do some scouting now. And those phoenixes are going to quickly be able to spot whether or not we are checking the tier 2. And with that Roach Warren in play, we may be seeing a Spire come in. There is one, no, sorry, not a Spire, a Hydralisk Den. Hydralisk Den with Roach is a very, very strong possibility. But by also getting that one Roach Warren, you can kind of fool your opponent into thinking that you are going for a Roach Hydra. I do not believe the Roach Warren actually cost any gas. So you could try to go that route and then completely confuse your opponent and then just train up a large number of Mutalisks. I have seen that happen, and then getting 12 to 15 Mutalisks that early when your opponent only has sentries to try to stop them isn't that effective at all, especially as sentries tend to get separated from each other as they travel a long distance. Back here, Roaches on the low ground, Overlords in the air, Creep Tumors now starting to be spread out across the map as we are getting an Evolution Chamber. Are we going to be going into a Spire? We do have enough gas to go for a Spire, but a Hydralisk then probably more likely, as we are also getting an Evolution Chamber as well. The Zerglings now sitting outside this front door. Huck just using the Zerglings, trying to see if they can get any scout Huck just sitting with these sentries out the front door, making sure that the Zerglings are not able to get any scouting information. The Numenized Carapace, I know I'm saying that wrong. Numenized Carapace also being upgraded in order to increase the Overlord movement speed. Perhaps an Overlord will try to suicide itself eventually. And take a look inside the base of Huck. Huck currently getting the robotics facility, will be getting an observer as well, as more units are still being macroed up and trained. Zerg melee attack being researched first. So it may be Zergling Roach is an awfully confusing opening, as now we are finally getting into that Spire. So we are going for that Spire, the Spire being hidden over here by this Overlord spawning creep. So by doing that, it may catch him off guard. Zergling's now trying to make their way through, trying to take down a couple of those probes. Probes have been taken down, 1 or 2, but not much of a loss there. Now, looking at Curious's build, Curious maybe, he is also spending some of his gas. So by spending a significant number of his gas, he's not going to be able to get nearly as many Mutalisks as he wants to by the time that Spire is completed. Perhaps somewhere in the realm of 7 to 8, nowhere near the 12 that he needs in order to get a semi-critical mass. There are a lot of hallucinated phoenixes around, so perhaps the hallucinations or the Mutalisks will be attacking hallucinations as opposed to going after real targets. Phoenix now continuing to fly around here. The hallucination just wandering around, getting plenty of sighting, scouting information. The Phoenixes, however, not gonna scout out, I believe, this Spire. And if it doesn't scout out that Spire, I don't think he's gonna be able to respond to it quickly enough. He does see that there is a hatchery over here, and look at this positioning, making it purposely look like there is no creep over here by creating a little division there. You can see that the Phoenixes are going to run out in just a moment. Zergling and Roaches do have that movement speed upgrade, so we'll be able to push in very, very easily. More gateways being warped in over here and creating a wall, making it very difficult for units to be able to pass through in between these two locations. And then sentries can essentially wall it off very easily, especially now getting some photon cannons here as natural defense. Probes being transferred over from the main base. A lot of energy sitting on the Nexus, so he should start to chrono boost perhaps some more probes, or even at least the weapons attack upgrades, as now Mutalisks are being trained in a bunch, currently running off of I believe 6 gas. So he will be able to train up 6 to 7 Mutalisks every minute, and with that he should be able to reach critical mass on Mutalisks in about 2 minutes. So 24 Mutalisks in the air. If Liquid Huck is not careful and invests too heavily into Colossus, he's not going to have the proper units to deal with those Mutalisks, as those Mutalisks are going to slowly just build up into a stronger and stronger ball. The Mutalisks do not have that weapons upgrade though, as those Zerglings now simply going to quickly run by, getting some early damage onto those cannons there. One photon cannon already down, a second photon cannon going to fall down as well, as the Roaches are now completely stuck. And the Roaches are not going to be able to fight back against those sentries, as there are Immortals helping out as well. Observer now coming into this position. We do have Burrow now being researched. If the Roaches do burrow, it's not going to really matter, as there is an Observer in the air here. But now there are Mutalisks attacking the main base and cleaning up many of those probes. So wow, Liquid Huck now losing a lot of his probes, and there you go, there you have it. Look, Liquid Huck does have a decent number of Stalkers, but without a Twilight Council, he does not have Blink, and he's not going to be able to catch up to those very fast moving Mutalisks. The Mutalisks are still being added to the army. Production wise, I don't see that many more. 11 Mutalisks in the air. We also have an Overseer as well. The Overseer can try to move alongside those Mutalisks, perhaps reveal any observers, as those Overlords are now being spaced out as well. Hallucinated Phoenix quickly just passing by and seeing the army of roaches. We can see Mutalisks once again on the move back over here. There is 3 photon cannons, making it very difficult to try to get any serious damage at all. Roaches and Zerglings perhaps going to hit another target, and this expansion right now is the main target that perhaps Curious should be trying to go for. The photon cannons already in position here. The photon cannons are focusing down some of those units, need to back off, going after the probes that are mining gas. Very, very smart play there, as they're now going to try to take down the assimilators. Roaches and Zerglings battling it out over here. The Roaches going to be able to get some damage onto many of those sentries, as those Stalkers are stuck in between, as those Stalkers are sitting on the ramp, unable to fight back. But there is a hallucinated Colossus in that battle, and now in comes some more force fields, and I do not believe that the hallucinated Colossus was even spotted. And there's also a hallucinated Immortal coming in off the ramp, so beautiful use of hallucinations, making what Curious think that he needs to pull back, but Mutalisks once again coming back in, trying to get more damage across multiple probes, and now able to pull back once again. Production wise, what is being trained? We are getting the Ventral Sack upgrades, the level 2 claw attacks. Queens are being trained up as well, as we are now going into an infestation pit, running off of essentially 4 bases. So Curious has no problem macroing up now, and he's going to have a large amount of gas to do whatever he wants with. Now he was sitting on about 1,000 gas just a moment ago, and now morphing in 20 Banelings. Those Banelings are going to have their way, perhaps blow through this position over here, and then take down a couple of Nexuses very easily. This Mutalisk deciding not to go up against a Stalker Ball. Very, very smart move there, as those Banelings are still being morphed in. We also have Blink now being researched for those Stalkers, and now the Mutalisks finally backing off. The Overseers are nowhere nearby to spot those observers, though. Hatchery now continuing to spawn larvae. A lot of production. Taking a look at the hatcheries, a decent amount of larvae at all 4 of those hatcheries, so we'll be able to train 16 units at a time if his army does get destroyed. But Huck now on the move. Huck with a very large army, and was sitting at 4,500 compared to 4,550, and we'll see what's going to be happening here. The Roaches do have tunneling claws, and this is going to be a massive Baneling bombing run. So Roaches and Banelings now moving out. The Overlords are just staying with them. The Overlords do have the movement speed upgrade, and now we also have Infestors for fungal growth. I do not believe there is a Spore Crawler nearby, or there is a Spore Crawler nearby there to reveal that Observer. I think the Observer is, no, not revealed there, as we also have Mutalisks just simply falling to mass or Stalkers over here. The Mutalisks will be able to win out eventually, as they do have a decent amount of numbers, but the Stalkers are blinking away, so more chain damage, and they continue to just try to get more and more damage over here. Another hatchery being placed at the 3 o'clock location, as the army, the Colossus, Immortals, and Sentries are now making their way back over, and that is a very potent Stalker Ball. The problem will be that the Baneling bombing runs, if they're able to drop in onto those sentries and get critical splash damage onto those units, the Banelings will be able to deal a significant amount of damage very, very easily. Stalkers are trying to move out a little bit ahead, not quite sure why they blinked, as drones are now being transferred to the 3 o'clock location. Income-wise, Curious should be able to get a stronger economy going in just a moment. He is mining off of more mineral patches than his opponent, and now we are teching to tier 3 as well. So a tech to tier 3, perhaps for the Zerg level 3 weapons upgrade, and perhaps also for the claw attack upgrade. The Banelings, you have to remember, are also upgraded to 2-0, so they deal significantly more damage, 24 damage and then 43 damage versus light. So they will, 2 Banelings will instantly be able to kill a cluster of sentries, and you can see that those sentries are a majority, or a large portion of, or a large significant portion of that gas army. And now Corruptors are in the air. Roaches now trying to move out. There are no Ultralisks though. Greater Spire now currently being built, as well as the Mutalisks now trying to make their way out. The Overlords have really nowhere to run, and now we have a lot of hallucinations, perhaps just in play. Corruptors are going to be able to finish them off very, very easily. And as this fight continues, Mutalisks turning around, back around, trying to get some more damage, and those Overlords trying to get in position. Are they going to absorb any serious damage? The Overlords do not move that quickly, and now the Overlord's trying to back off once again, but losses are very significant, and those roaches and infestors need to pull back perhaps a fungal growth in order to stop any of those ensuing units. Production-wise, we are still getting a lot of corruptors, and we are going to be going into mass broodlords in just a moment. Stalkers now continuing to give chase. Roaches now coming in. One Baneling gonna splash, not deal any damage at all. There is a fungal growth happening there as those units continue to move around. The Banelings in these Overlords have not done anything at all, as the infestors are finally back on creep. Will they be able to run away successfully? And now in come the Overlords. The Overlord's going to start dropping Banelings on those units here. And there you go, starting to drop those Banelings, getting some damage across the sentries. The sentries are now all taken down as the Corruptors are going after those other units. But not that much damage was done. Army-wise, 3425 versus 3150. And now the Corruptors going after those other units as well. As now we just have a massive Stalker ball. Zerglings are going to be massively swarmed and trained in just a moment. Queen now coming out. Those Zerglings now getting a decent surround onto the rest of those units as the Corruptors are in the air, finally able to blink away the gravitic boosters on those observers, helping them moving away much more quickly as those Stalkers are now pulling back. So this game is still anyone's to be had, but with that much gas and this many Corruptors, which I believe we are going to be getting broodlords in mass. 10 broodlords now being trained. We are also getting the gravitic drive, so the warp prisms will be moving out much more quickly. 10 broodlords on the move. Protoss ground armor level 2 and shield upgrades level 2 and a dark shrine. So a dark shrine now coming in. This expansion needs to be placed down by Curious, otherwise he's going to be running out of minerals in just a quick moment. 78 harvesters compared to 82. Level 3 weapons upgrade, so those broodlings are going to be dealing a massive amount of damage. I don't see any Corruptors that are going to be able to walk alongside these Overlords. Now Overlords move very slowly, and we'll see how much damage they are able to do, if any damage at all, as what the probes over here are now going to do a little bit of long distance mining. Stalkers now in position here, and now there are a couple Corruptors and Roaches, but the Stalkers with Blink should be able to shut down these Broodlords. The Broodlords do not have the armor upgrades, and now there is also an observer watching these Broodlords make their move. So what is going to happen here? The Broodlords now quickly going after those probes. Stalkers are now trying to blink, and now Zerglings trying to swarm. What's going to be happening as those Broodlings are starting to get choked up? There is a couple Corruptors nearby, and now those Stalkers underneath the Broodlords. Banelings trying to get in position. The Broodlords need to pull back, but the Stalkers would be able to get in position very, very easily, and down goes that army of Broodlords that I was so impressed with earlier. But many of those Stalkers are now shut down as well. Both sides losing a majority of their army, and now we are down to 2,500 versus 2,500. Overseers trying to fly away. They will be able to barely escape there. But where is the rest of this army? A mass, or what, a 16 roach drop perhaps into the main base could deal some damage, but probably not very much. Production-wise, we are getting 9 Corruptors and the Chatonis plating, or is it Chatonis plating? Chatonis plating on those Ultra Lords. So those, not the Ultra Lords, the Ultralists. So those Ultralists should be able to absorb a lot of damage. The Roaches are gonna try to drop into position, but in comes some Psy Storm already, and now all of those Roaches are gonna suffer a lot of damage, and now trying to go after the rest of those High Templars. This one Archon will get taken down very easily, and both sides are starting to battle it out. The Roaches are now currently not being revealed. Sorry, now being revealed by this one Photon Cannon, and now the Roaches are starting to battle it out once again. Are we gonna get any more observers? No, what, the Roaches are now burrowed. We'll be able to regenerate back up to full hit points in just a second. Pop back up, try to deal more damage. And playing whack-a-mole here is going to be very, very difficult, especially as an observer needs to slowly make its way over. More Immortals now being added as well. So those Immortals are going to be able to deal a lot of damage towards those Roaches. But we once again see 10 Broodlords being trained. The observer will be popping out. There you go. And the Roaches now trying to battle it back out. They should have tried to play whack-a-mole a little bit longer, but unable to do so. Where are those Broodlords? Broodlords are here. It does take a significant amount of time for them to warp or morph into play, as we are now perhaps going to get a hatchery here. No, long distance mining instead. a very macro style of play. We are now almost 30 minutes into this game as a Baneling bombing run gonna try to destroy some of these units over here. The Banelings are gonna start to slowly fall out of the sky, perhaps get some damage. One Baneling, two Banelings just trying to sacrifice themselves. More Psystorm coming in. Will these Baneling bombing runs gonna be effective here? Dropping the Banelings now. 2, 3 Banelings are all dropped, but no real damage dealt at all. The Broodlords now just hiding off in this location here. We are getting the Zerg level 3 ground upgrades, but still no Ultralisk in sight. Zerglings and Banelings, Roaches on the move, no decent creep spread, so those units are not going to be able to move that quickly at all, but 10 Broodlords should be feared. A lot of Overlords low on hit points there. A lot of bases have nearly been mined out. A large army of Stalkers. Production-wise, level 3 weapons upgrade and level 3 ground armor for those Stalkers will help out even further as those Broodlords are going to slowly make their way in. Banelings are now coming in as well, and now it's going to be a straight drop into the base here. There are Immortals coming in, and those Broodlords just trying to get as much damage as possible. Roach is now coming in, Psystorm now coming in as well. Multiple Psystorms, fungal growth hitting multiple units as well as those Broodlords are now all very low on hit points. The Stalkers need to focus on the Broodlords as there is not that many Stalkers left and not many Broodlords left either. Zealots now cleaning up the rest of the Broodlings so the Stalkers can focus on the Broodlords, and the Broodlords are taken down. 8,000 mineral or 8,000 resource loss difference between the two armies now, and now it looks like Liquid Huck should be able to finish off this game. He has a much larger army, significantly larger. All we see really being produced by Zerg and by Curious is a couple of Zerglings and Roaches. High Templars being warped in. Level 3 armor upgrades about to be completed. Level 3 weapons upgrade still about halfway to go as the drones are now finally going to be able to start mining off of this gold mineral patches. If it wasn't for the Stalkers that are now here to destroy this hatchery, I believe that is going to be GG as those Roaches try to just come into here. The Stalkers able to blink away a couple of Psystorms, and this Roach army will completely just melt. No, the Immortals doing more than enough of a job in order to be able to shut that down, and now a very overzealous High Templar trying to get into the front. Psystorm should be coming in. There you go. Psystorming the Roaches, and the GG should be coming in shortly. The Ultralists are now being trained, but the Protoss army at full upgrades pretty much unstoppable here. Huck getting Stalkers with Blink, a perfect counter to those Broodlords. I think Curious pretty much invested too much into his Broodlord attacks. I think if he had tried to instead use Nidus Worms and then focus on his ground army, which was pretty well upgraded with level 3 Carapace upgrades and the Zerg level 3 claw attacks, he could have perhaps split up that slower moving Stalker Immortal army. A nice Nidus Worm right into this location would have just destroyed a lot of the majority of the tech, the Cybernetics Core, the Gateway, the Robotics Facility, and the Twilight Council, forcing them to be rebuilt and then to slowly make their way, also doing another Nidus Worm here to try to attack this backdoor location. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay between Curious and Huck here on Metalopolis.